There's a Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah, there's a new one. Yeah.
There's an old one?
So do I just
Yes, in 1995. If you want to. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, totally. We'll all hear it.
There we go.
Yo.
Hey, buddy. I thought I'd try that. So you're coming through on the caster, so the guys can hear you. I'm just going to see if this will work a little bit better.
Yeah, I've only got 4. I've got 4G, but I've only got like 1 bar of service, so
Yeah, it's all
I
good.
thought it might cut in and out.
That's all right, Jake. You're coming in loud and clear now, so that's all right.
So that's
Okay, great.
That's Josh you can hear there.
So-
And I've got Peter beside me.
G'day, Jake. Nice to have you here, mate.
Hey, dude, that's a cozy little room you guys have there.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's Josh's. He set up the whole studio. He curated it. It's a nice little place.
Through the illusion
Yeah,
of a
no,
couple
let's-
of cameras, it doesn't seem to be as small as it is, but it's still...
Yeah, no, it looks great.
Thank you, sir. I saw you guys had a matching hats on there. What is this? Coordinating?
Yeah, so Inner West Hemp. I'll let Jake take the lead on that. What is Inner West Hemp, Jake?
Inner West Hemp is a hemp-derived CBD business that myself and Mel Eckert founded, I think it was at the end of 2018. So we do CBD oils and topicals and sleep support sprays and all that kind of stuff in the US.
Oh, fabulous. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it's become like a really great product for us stunties that are constantly trying to deal with pain, and a lot of us aren't getting any younger.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to look after yourself now. Looking forward to the future.
So like obviously topical treatments, easing of joints, bruising, that sort of stuff, or then adding to the effects of marijuana, hemp, CBD in the bloodstream. Is that kind of a really bad interpretation? Or?
Yeah, so we've got a range of different products ranging from like the tinctures, as the Americans call them. They're just like an oil dropper in a 30 ml bottle. We've got different concentrates of those, and then we've got 2 topical products. One being your typical kind of cream in a jar kind of set up, and the other one's a roll-on. And then we've got a sleep support spray as well that's mixed with melatonin. So it's a cool, rather than knocking you out like a lot of sleep things do, this one just kind of, puts you to sleep, which is good.
That's
and
cool.
we've also got gummies as well. So it's a little bit different delivery method.
And what is that like in Australia? Because I'm totally oblivious to our laws in regards to it. It's sort of, you see a lot more of the American situation of a lot of states being legalized. What is it in Australia?
We're about 5 to 6 years behind the US here, as far as legality and manufacturing products, and just really getting our head around the industry. Australia has taken a bit of a leap with trying to actually deschedule it to a Schedule 3 medication, which means it would be not controlled by a doctor. You could get it over the counter at a pharmacist, but basically the whole global CBD world operates in this weird kind of gray area where a lot of the results and the first-hand results from people are quite anecdotal, and the FDA and the DEA in the United States will leave you alone as long as you don't make health claims. So we all know people that have had CBD for cancer treatment, for treating irritable bowel syndrome, really a lot of stuff with concussion injuries and CTE. But being in that it's still linked to cannabis, you can't make a claim to say CBD will help you with cancer symptoms. CBD will help you with your CTE injury. And that's when your DEAs and your FDAs will come and basically snuff you out really quickly.
And a lot of the stuff recently has been helping with epilepsy, hasn't it?
Yeah. So basically the big thing CBD does is it shuts down your inflammation pathways. So your body isn't able to create that unnecessary inflammation. And a lot of the problems people have with epilepsy is it's a result of brain inflammation. So CBD shutting down those pathways in your brain actually helps it, function the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. That's
it's quite cool.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we get you on for the hemp hour. It seems at the moment. Like, I mean, that's incredible. Like little nugget coming from your hats there. That's great.
Yeah.
God. So, Jay, how long have you known each other for, guys?
Yeah, when did we first meet?
I think, I mean, I
don't know.
was graded end of 2016. I actually can't remember the first time I met you.
No, I remember seeing you at the pub. Like, I remember being aware of you and then seeing you at the pub after the Hacksaw Ridge premiere. And I saw you and you were sort of you were in the front room of the pub and we were in the back room of the pub. And then when
I think I was there with my partner at the time. It wasn't really showing much interest in the whole thing. So
yeah,
I think it was just me and her that went there. So yeah, that was pre-stunt days.
yeah, that's like 2015 or 2016 actually would have been.
Okay, and so that's when Jake was getting graded, and then Ado, you were progressing, or were you graded?
I was graded, but I was still in my provisional years. So basically, as a stunter, you start off as a before you even get into the industry, you've got to sort of earn your stripes, and then you get given the first accreditation, which is as a stunt actor provisional. And then you've basically got to continue earning your stripes up until a stunt actor, which is what Jake and I are graded as now.
And so, then stunt supervisor, would that be
then
the next
assistant coordinator, then coordinator.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any steps along the way, Jake, that you were like, oh, I don't know about this. This one part seems a bit too gnarly maybe to learn and incorporate. I might.
Let me just jump in before he answers that. Because, Jake's previous jobs, shall we say.
He's an entrepreneur, obviously.
No, I'll let him explain what he was doing for, as a the main job before he got into stunts. But I think both of them probably set him up pretty well. So go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, so before stunts, I was working in a coal mine.
Okay, that's already pretty extreme. Yeah.
So I was doing that sort of stuff. And then before that, I was a fitter and machinist. Had a trade background. So I was doing that. And before that, I was racing motorcycles. So
okay, that's a good
those
curve.
Kind of three things. Yeah, those just kind of three things meshed together, and then.
See, I'd argue that you're now in the safest of the jobs that you've had.
Yeah, machinist, you can lose your hair and your arm. Coal mine, you can kind of lose everything in your lung. And motorbike, well, hey, whatever it takes you.
Yeah, I've basically had a death wish from day one.
What about the water side? Like, is there an area that you're kind of a bit, I'd rather Bob take that section, like that's a water-based thing and I'm not the biggest fan, or is it kind of you feel pretty comfortable in most areas?
I mean, I grew up surfing, so it's not that bad, but obviously everyone brings their own set of skills to the table, just given their background. My stuff was bike. My partner's stuff is martial arts and cars and that sort of thing. Like each person that gets graded, because obviously you have to pass a certain grading criteria to be shown competent in a bunch of different areas as a baseline. But yeah, everyone brings their own sort of specialty into it.
That must be quite supportive on a set as well, of like feeling confident in your set of skills that you have a background in, and everyone kind of like, Jake's he's fantastic on a bike, and we'll let him do that, and sort of stepping up, and that I think there'd be something really nice.
Not for me. I mean, my background was pretending.
Okay, well, you'd be pretty good at all of them then. Just throw you in the deep end, and you'll be fine. So did you find the whole process, like, was there some steps along the way that were, obviously nothing was really a hindrance or a deterrent, but was there something that was like, it took you a bit more time, had to bang your head against it, maybe not literally, but?
I mean, not really. Like, it's pretty...
Okay, thanks, Jake, that's fine. Seems like you're pretty skilled at all. And,
No, I mean, the union sets the criteria out that you have to meet, and I mean, it's not really advertised. It's not really, people don't put up banners for it. Okay. It's on the MEAA website. If you want to go be a stunt person, you can read the criteria and tick the boxes, and then from there, it's on you. You've got to pick the areas you want to be competent in. I think you've got to be competent in 4 out of the 5, and then it's a matter of you actually going out there and doing the training, networking with stunt coordinators, networking with stunt people. Because at the end of the day, you still got to get those references. You still got to get those hours logged with a stunt coordinator.
So what are those 5?
To get signed off.
The five main areas you got to get graded in. So you've got your basic body control and stunt specific stuff. Within body control, there's kind of subcategory. So you also need to have prove a competency in martial arts, dance, gymnastics. Like within body control, there's kind of a subcategory.
And they're sort of all grades themselves of like tick, body control, dance, or is it again now a bit of an amalgam of 4 out of 5 of these? It's kind of a bit of a pass as well.
It's just one of those categories. So you just need to prove a competency in one of the areas that come under the banner head of body control. Then you've got heights. So you've got to have rope access or any of those things to do with heights. Be a rigger, anything like that.
And that's falls as well. Like
you got to prove that you can do your basic falls off I think that at the moment they've still got it set to like a 6 meter into a hard device, basically. And when I say hard device, I'm not talking about concrete. I'm saying not an airbag, basically. So you're talking about mats.
Okay, mats.
Yeah. Then you've got water. So you got to have your bronze medallion or be a diver or a pretty competent surfer. You got animals. So basically, if you grew up on a farm, so you can ride horses, you can ride bulls, you can do that type of thing. You classify as under animals.
Okay.
And then you got vehicles. So you've got to have a license, you got to do your advanced and your defensive driving courses, and you got to prove a competency in that. They're your 5 for when you're trying to get into the industry.
Yes.
Step above that, when you're going for your stunt actor, you have to add fire. So you need to prove that whatever 4 of those you chose initially, and body control is mandatory.
Yeah.
The new mandatory one that they add is fire. So you have to do a torch, basically get set on fire, prove a competency in that, and show that you have advanced your competencies in all the other areas that you graded under.
Right. So look, when you lunatics are all ticked off and you're ready to go,
and
you're in the industry, you start getting some traction.
Mm-hmm.
Do you start to find that a lot of people have a bit of a holy grail of their stunt work? Is there something that stunt people really want to do? Do you want to blow yourself up? What is it? Is there something? Ado, what do you want to do?
I think we all want to do the one that our mates are going to talk about.
So, Jake, what's that? What's the thing you want Aiden to be talking to us about?
I mean, I just want to see him. I just want to see people do cool stunts. You can make a simple stunt look really, really good, or you can make a really hard stunt, look really easy. But yeah, I think at the moment, our good friend Ben Toy is kind of leading the way with his cannons he's doing with his cars. It's quite an incredible thing to see, and he's quite got it down to a bit of a fine art the way he builds everything and puts the system in a car, and then how it looks on camera. Like you crashing a car and flipping it 5-6 times. Like it's pretty incredible. And for him to come out every time unscathed, fine, ready to go again if he has to. That for me, that's pretty much the coolest thing at the moment.
How do you get to that point? I mean, okay, so get out there, mate. Take the car, crash it, roll it, do whatever it is that is required. But before he had the job of crashing and rolling this car, how did he practice that skill? Like, how do you get to that point? How on earth do you learn to crash a car?
Well, it's really problem solving. So there's a lot of aspects that go into it. You've got the shot that the director wants to see, and then you've obviously got to go to your recce and have a look at the environment and where it's going to happen, and then you've got to do the problem solving of how do we achieve what we think this person wants to see, and then it goes about obviously safety for the performer and the crew is the number one thing. So he's quite clever, and he's got really good mechanical kind of the way his brain works. That he can pick a car and throw a roll cage in it and put all the other moving parts in, and then just making sure it's safe. Obviously they've done a lot of rehearsals and testing and that sort of thing, and you've just got to put yourself in a nice safe position that you know is going to work on the day, and send it.
I mean, the other thing that I would say as well is, stunt performing is still such an apprenticeship in that there's such a long process to get graded. Once you become graded, people have to take you under their wing. And before Ben ever got the chance to sit in the driver's seat and be on the trigger button, he had crewed on, at a guess, I'd probably say about 150 car crashes.
Right.
So he's been there putting other people into the car and watching the way that they're doing it. And I think there's no one in the industry who's any good who isn't standing on the shoulders of the people that came before them. Like everyone, you pick up not only how to do it, but also how not to do it. Like you learn from other people's mistakes. I think that's kind of the best way of learning you can ever have. If you're actually able to look at it and understand what's going on, which like we're talking about Ben specifically, like he's almost like an idiot savant when it comes to mechanics and engineering. Like if he hadn't have discovered stunts at the age that he did, he'd definitely be a mechanical engineer. Like that's just the way his head works.
Sounds like an interesting bloke.
Yeah. So I think for, there's in all the way through stunts, there is that. Like we're all learning off each other, and you're also all being pushed by each other. Like, for Jake and I, we watch Benji doing these, car crashes right now, and we're already thinking like in the future, right, when we've earned it. And that's the other big thing is earning it. Once we get to the position where we've earned the opportunity to be in that driver's seat, we're standing on the shoulders of Benji now, and we've learned from all of his stuff.
It's amazing. I mean, I grow up, no idea. I just know there are stuntmen. And I have this image in my head of a rogue cowboy, complete lunatic. Who's the American bloke on the Harley who jumps everything?
Oh, Evil Knievel.
Evil Knievel. That's the imagery I get in my head. There you go. That's a stuntman. But it's talking to you two right now. Seem quite level-headed and kind of, well aligned with, an industry that's quite sensible, which is kind of, counterintuitive to think.
In my personal opinion, I think Jake would agree with this. If someone came in who was actually a loose cannon, we'd get rid of him.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of the stuff you're doing, when it goes wrong, people die. And people have died. It's happened quite a lot. So I want people around me that I can trust, that I know are going to stay calm, make good decisions. And
clearly one of those industries you really need to be a tight-knit team. Do you look at seeing these skill sets and everyone sort of branches out into their own car crashes, burning yourself, whatever it is that your background sort of, leads you there too. Do you start looking at people and start to think this person would be really good at X, Y, or Z? Because look, I'm sitting here and Josh, your background, you do your parkour things. I don't know what it is.
Please do not even. I feel now embarrassed.
Oh, come on, you do.
That you have two stuntmen here,
it's ridiculous.
And then you say that to me.
However,
that seems like you're trying to insult me now.
Oh, come on.
I can say I'm athletic, but
I mean, I'm not saying that you could just go and do what they do.
Of
but
course
I mean, it's clearly a pedigree that could lead you.
Sure.
And have the ability to do some pretty gnarly stunt work. And because I've been learning about it for the last 14 minutes.
Yes, you've made the evaluation. Well, Jake, you were saying with regards to like Ben, it seems like he's a person that's not just someone who is amazing at crashing or creating that scene, but he's a conduit for the technical aspects of what a director of photography needs to get the shot that they envision. Do you think that's also like seemingly a critical part of the whole role there?
Yeah, well, I think Ado touched on a great topic, and that is like, stunts being an apprenticeship, and and hours you spend on set, and the more time you spend at it, the more you kind of figure out, what works, what doesn't, and it's not, what's not worth the effort. And as stunt performers, obviously we don't get as much of an idea as, say, a stunt coordinator or a safety officer does, that are there with the directors, doing the recce and looking at the situation and going, okay, well, I think they're going to shoot it this way, so here's some options on how we can do it. But then at the same time, they've got to have in their head, well, what if they want to shoot it this way, or what if they want to do it this way? And looking at a sort of a plot of stunt or a position where they can make it happen and change it on the day if they have to basically fit in with what the shot has to look like.
There must be some times, I'm sure, like a bit of pressure comes onto the set. There's a lot of people around. We're expecting this thing. Have you ever felt nervous? You kind of like, I actually know. And have you kind of pushed that and gone, fuck it, I'll just do it. Like, I'll get it over and done with. Like, I feel nervous. Maybe that's also probably more at the beginning than maybe where you are now. But has there been a situation like that where you've just gone through and put it aside to the back of the mind? And
to add to that, just the awareness of this crazy budget that you potentially be working under as well. I mean, you can't be playing around with hours and hours of time when you just don't have it.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure going on.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Anyway, someone got an answer for that?
Jake?
Jake.
Yeah. Not too much pressure. Like, obviously you get, like, I can only speak for myself. Like, I get the same butterflies when they're counting down sort of 3, 2, 1 action as I used to get when I was racing. But then at the same time, like, by the time you get to that point, you've rehearsed it, you know what you've got to do, you know where you've got to land, you know the action that they want you to perform, and then it's pretty much it's on you to perform it. I think if you're getting to the point where you are sort of that nervous, you're either ill prepared or you don't really know, you haven't asked the right questions and you don't really know what you've got to do. Yeah. So I think if you either ask the right questions and you know exactly what you've got to do and you're prepared and you're trained and you put the work in, like, yeah, you'll still get those butterflies, but you shouldn't be,
do it properly,
too nervous because, there's a job that's got to be done. You're the guy to do it. And, you're either prepared and ready or you're not.
Mate, if this was an interview, you would be hired. That was beautiful. Eh? Who is this guy? Sorry, Josh, you were going to say something? I was going to say,
well, that sounds, I mean, that's a fantastically beneficial sounding industry that you have there, that it is one, you're not going to have these loose cannons because it's this supportive growth area where you guys are developed through the ranks. You trust each other. You're getting rid of people who you think, oh, no, you're probably not going to be cut out for it. And that's beneficial. And two, you're getting to a stage where you're knowledgeable enough as well. Like, so it sounds like a really actually healthy industry compared to possibly the idea of what it is.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
It is, but what I will say as well is we're still trying to sort of redeem the reputation in a lot of ways. I think, like it was said to me at one point by another sort of senior stunty who was eavesdropping on a conversation between myself and a couple of my peers, and he said, "Do you realise for the last 45 minutes you guys have talked about buying property and stocks?" And we went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Back in my day, it was about who we were sleeping with and how much Coke we had to buy for tonight." And I just went, "Yeah, we're not like the industry's changed. Like there's been an evolution." And I think there's still some of the older people within the industry that view stunts as being these kind of egocentric, people that just show up, break everything and leave. And I think we're still sort of trying to work to get rid of that image, because it's just not the reality of what I know. Like I do know, like there's a couple of guys in our industry. You got Mark and Mike Duncan. Now they are
brothers.
They're brothers. They're twins.
Okay.
So
they can stunt in for each other.
Yeah, there's some funny stories about that, but I'll let them tell it when they eventually get on here. But yeah, like they're two of the hardest guys I've ever known. More broken bones between them and injuries and all types of stuff. Like they're the guys that you bring in when you want to high side a motorcycle at 60k an hour onto the bitumen. That's kind of their deal. The big gags. And they're kind of known for that ability to, when you go, oh, we want you to hit that wall, you know that they're going to go through it. There's that kind of ability to do that. And I think what you kind of need within stunts is the ability to still do that, but then also be calculated to know when to do it and when not to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's definitely a sort of slow evolution that's happening with the people that I know that we work with, where it's kind of getting to be much more scalpel than hammer.
Yeah, that's obviously it's fantastic to hear, because like I say, certain people are drawn to it. Obviously, like stunts has a thing of you wouldn't do it if I have a attention to wanting to count numbers and sit in an office and this is really like what I like to do. No, you're out riding a motorbike and competing, and that's probably part of the personality that will eventually get me to this position. So it does seem like a very much a profession that you're never going to get people who aren't suited for it. But generationally now, things change and you become more open-minded, and then things that are important in our world change as well. So, like, Jake, was there an inkling ever when you were younger, racing and thinking or seeing a movie? Was there a time when you went, oh, that looks pretty cool? I wonder if that's a job, or did it suddenly spark in you, that is a job?
I never knew it was a job, and now that I think back at it, kind of, in a sense, it kind of pisses me off, because I went to a performing arts school and they didn't tell me it was a job. No, I mean, I always liked action movies. I grew up kind of idolizing Jackie Chan and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we were racing bikes.
So what was
and then from there, I did my trade. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Racing kind of wasn't working out. So did my trade, went to the mines, did that. But I was just kind of ticking over. Hadn't found a passion. And then someone I used to race with got the opportunity to do Mad Max. And while he was doing that film, he called me up and he's like, hey, this is up your alley. So yeah, I just started pursuing it from there, and didn't really know how to get into it. I went and did days as an extra on set, just to kind of learn film sets and meet people, and that's really how I got into it. I was lucky enough to meet a stunt coordinator on set who brought me out to do some days with him, some assisting and that sort of thing. And then that's pretty much how I got my grading sorted.
And so I mean that you hear that quite often. I just went out and did this. I was on set. I was just there. I'm around the other people who are also in this field, and I think I'm clueless at the moment, but I'm amongst it. And that in itself seems such an incredibly beneficial thing. Like, so many people would ask questions of like, how do I do this? What's the exact path? It's like, no, just be amongst it. A lot of times it would seem to be a really good answer for that.
Yeah, but in saying that, I'm kind of, a part of me is glad I did get into it a little bit older, like, because you kind of have that little bit more life experience, that little bit more maturity, and your mindset is a little bit more for longevity. Like I had a lot of accidents racing bikes. So by the time I got into stunts, I kind of lost that hot-headedness, and I had that bit more of maturity and especially from the mining background as well, having that safety drilled into you as well, that you've got to go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a big one there. Definitely in that environment. Like, I did a short stint in Canada on an oil rig, and that felt reasonably safe, but it was pretty lackadaisical. But because you're around so much stuff that is potentially harmful, there's a greater self-awareness, and that teaching you, if they're not going to protect me, I'm going to protect myself, and then throwing yourself into those situations. Jake, so what were you racing? Like, what style of motorbike racing was it?
I was racing outdoor motocross. The open paddocks with your jumps and your turns and that sort of stuff. And you line up 30, 40 riders at the gate, and they drop the gate, and you're out there for 30 minutes plus 2 laps. That was pretty much every weekend since I was 5 or 6 years old.
Until when? Like, when did that sort of stop? You had a couple injuries, you were saying, when you were sort of like, ooh.
Yeah, when I turned, I think I was about 18 when I stopped racing regularly, and then from there it was maybe a couple races every 6 months until I was mid-20s. And then from there, like when I stopped racing and started sort of doing it more part-time, that's when I would crash more, because you'd see people that you used to kind of rub shoulders with, and you'd immediately try to get back to that level, and that's when the crashes would come.
Ego is a hard thing to put behind you. I used to do that thing, and now I'm not, and I can still do that thing.
I do love the rubbing shoulders. Like, we normally talk about that as in, like, we're in the same room, and we're in Jake's context, it's literally you're fighting to get first into that corner with a guy that's, you're traveling very, very fast, and you're literally hitting shoulders against each other trying to get in first.
Yeah. And so is there some scenes that you can think of in some movies that you're like, God damn, I would love to be doing that stunt right now. That scene looks so fun. Is there anything that particularly comes to mind for that, you, Jake?
I mean, I really want to do stuff that I'm really not good at, and I knew it'd be a lot of hard work to do. So, the opening sequence in the first Deadpool film, that's, I'd love to be able to do that, because it's like such the different wheelhouse that I'm in, and it would just take so much work and so much training to do it. And it's also like that body movement stuff that I don't really understand, but I'm curious about kind of how to make that work. So that's the kind of stuff I really would like to do. My base in the other areas of bikes and cars is okay. You can see a bike stunt or see a car stunt and be like, okay, well, I sort of know how that would work. But when you see, your parkour guys and your gymnasts and that, and the way their body moves and the way they can spin and that kind of thing, and it's so foreign that I'm drawn to that in a sense. It's just like, well, I really don't know how to do that, so that's what I want to learn how to do.
Yeah, that seems that's always going to propel you as well nicely. Like, there's always going to be something that we're not good at. And having that open-mindedness to pursue that's definitely a beneficial trait. I mean, do you find there's any protectivity or insular? It doesn't sound like there is, but is there insular thinking in some skill sets from maybe the older crews, more experienced guys who are sort of afraid to share some of the tricks and stuff just because of intimidation possibly, or thinking that I don't want these young upstarts taking my position possibly?
I remember, like, recently when we were on set, again, working with Benji, and there was a moment where we were talking about the setup and we were talking about the equipment we had, and there was someone that wasn't a member of the stunt team. I can't remember who they were, but they were sort of included in the conversation. And then the coordinator turned around to us and he went, "Wasn't that many years ago that this would have been like covered in tarps, and no, we're not talking about this. This is our secrets. This is no one's allowed to know about this." And we started talking about there being this kind of sort of brains trust occurring now of like, no, we're sharing all the ideas. And the way that I put it to the coordinator at the time, was that, the thing that we're looking at right now that's on set, that's right now. We're already thinking about how to improve that. So if someone wanted to jump in and copy that exactly, then by the time they've managed to copy it, we're already, we've improved on that. And it's, you're a few steps down the line. And there's that constant need to progress it and make it better. And I think I just think my personal opinion is you develop better things and you learn more by the more people you include in it. At the end of the day, someone's got to make a decision and someone's got to decide the route to take. But I think the more input there is, the sort of the better the product is going to end up being.
Yeah, I remember when I was climbing and the positive atmosphere you have with your crew. You are competing with one another. Is this little bit of like, I just saw Ben just jump up there and you did that pretty good. Okay, I reckon I could get one more. Okay, and you do that. But you are all so positive reinforcement as well once they're up there. And then once you're up there, same thing back. So it does sound like you guys have that positive atmosphere as well. Jake, is there any that sort of time when you're does it feel like a job still, or is it kind of like that sense of, oh, I can't wait to step up now and do this thing? Even though you said you get nervous, like all performances, I think a lot of people do have that. Is there still a little bit of, okay, yeah, rightio, or are you still just infatuated and stoked to be on set every time?
No, for me, I'm always trying to figure out, put together all the pieces of information throughout the day. So when it is time for the stunt to happen, you know exactly what you've got to do. So you really do have to be, listening to your stunt coordinator, listening to where they're setting up cameras, like have an ear out for what the director might want to see, and just try and get all of that information. And when you're on set about to do a stunt, like, information's your friend. You want to try and get everything. And you're going to get the majority of that from your stunt coordinator. But if you sort of kept your ear to the ground and say, okay, well, camera's going to be here, it's going to be moving like this, and director kind of wants something that looks like this. And if you can get as much information you can, it just makes your job easier when it is time to, 3, 2, 1 action. So from the day, so it is a job in a sense. So you get there on the day and you're in work mode because you've got to try and achieve something, and you need to try and get all the information you can to make that happen.
Yeah. So just going a bit blank there. I didn't fill me in for a bit of time.
I was thinking there's kind of, for me, the big difference between like the image of the stunty as the Evel Knievel and the reality of it, in that, Evel Knievel, it was always about the build up to this one big thing. And that's all he does. He publicises it. I'm doing this thing. Whereas for us, because we're looking at longevity of career, when it comes to doing that one big stunt, you're sort of building towards it. So like, it's probably better to talk about one again, because we've been talking about him, one of Benny's. So, his car rolls. In the lead up to it, there's you get booked for the job. And that's the first point, is when the coordinator goes, hey, are you available to do this? And if it's a big stunt, they'll sort of tell you what it is. And you're like, yeah, cool. From that point, these wheels sort of start ticking over in your brain. And from that point until you hear the, 3, 2, 1, action, there's this constant slow preparation. And it's kind of never perfect. And there's always things that get thrown in the way. So for Ben, because he's building the vehicles now, he's trying to factor in, how am I going to construct this stuff? How am I going to, come in on budget, in the time frame? And I mean, he's the hardest working guy I know in stunts for just hours that he puts in.
When you say building there, that brings to mind, is there some sort of certification? Racing, you have a frame that's inside the car, for instance, roll cage, that's certified by a department that's saying, yeah, this is safe enough to roll. But you were saying, I'm building a unique bespoke thing for this one-off thing.
Yeah. So who's regulating?
Yeah, what's that?
So this is the other big thing about stunts, which is why we need smart, engineering-minded people. Like I mentioned, the Duncans. They're guys that can build this stuff. Like they were the ones building it that we learnt off. And the guys they learnt by building stuff with the guys before them. Like there's this. The more mechanically minded you are, the better you're going to be in the industry, because there is that level of acumen needed now, because we are self-regulated.
Well, it's all mechanics. It's mechanics of the body. It's mechanics of the setup.
It's essentially my job is to dabble in physics. And, they've tried a few times to regulate us by other, industry standards. But you try and regulate us like we're a building site. Well, that means that any time that we're within 1.2 meters of a height greater than a meter, we need to be harnessed. And we need to be, well, what if it's 15 meters and I've got to fall off it? So all of a sudden so we have to be self-regulated. So, Ben being allowed to build these vehicles, he was allowed to do it because he's built race cars and because he has a knowledge of what's involved in an FIA regulated cage. But then he's building something a little bit different because, we want, like, let's say the director says, okay, this film's set in America and we want the driver to die. Then we're going, okay, well, in that case, we want the driver's side of the car to crush,
Mm.
and we'll drive it from the passenger's side so that that can stay intact and, Ben can walk away. So there's those thought processes that come into it. And then the design is normally sort of set to the purpose. So whether you're building a cannon car or a pipe ramp car or however you're going to use it, there's a different technique that goes into building it. And he's at the point now where he's from go to woe doing the entire thing.
Mm.
You must be signing a hell of a lot of waivers with a lot
Less
of
than you'd
skull and
think.
crossbones on them. I mean, it's being self-regulated where you can just sort of come up with what you're building and perform it however a creative mind wants. Of course, do it with, as safely as possible. However, the people who are creating and writing this stuff, they're not really thinking about an industry standard. They've just got a creative thought in their mind, and you have to somehow mesh these things together.
On that note, one of the funniest things that happen on set is when you get asked to do something that actually bends physics. So I've had times where I've been, people have seen someone do a high fall and then they've gone, oh, we just need them to fall a bit slower.
Brilliant.
You're up to any of those, Jake. We really need you to just do that thing, but just make it so it's possible, but it's not possible.
I mean, it's all problem solving at the end of the day. Like, obviously, your writer isn't writing his, screenplay thinking of, well, how's a stunt person going to do this? It's the stunt coordinator's job to flag that stunt and work out with his team a way to achieve it, and a couple of different ways to achieve it. When you start factoring in, environment and budget and that sort of stuff. So, a lot of it does come down to just having that problem-solving mindset. But I think that's another aspect of what attracts certain people to that industry. People that can solve problems, people that like, riddles and puzzles and that kind of thing. Because, I mean, that's what it is at the end of the day. Your screenwriter's not writing it for a stunt person. They're writing it to tell a story, and we're a cog in that machine of how to tell that story. So, you do have to solve a lot of problems and figure out how to achieve what they want to see, safely and efficiently.
I think you've just hit on also one of my favourite things about sort of modern day stunts is the suiting the stunt to the purpose. So, like, we did a film called Palm Beach a couple of years ago where I was doubling Mr. Sam Neill, living legend, and you're talking about a fight between Sam Neill and Brian Brown. So you've got
New Zealand versus Australia.
Yeah, you basically got two guys that their characters should have never been in a fight, or if they did, it was 40 years ago. So if we suddenly choreographed a fight with them where they're doing high level jiu-jitsu and the taekwondo, like the helicopter kicks and stuff like that, it's ridiculous. So then you start choreographing, right? How would these characters actually do it? And then once you start working out how they'd actually do it, then you start going, all right, how can we choreograph as much of this as we can so that the actors can do it themselves? And where do we need to step in and take that hit that, will then sell for the screen, but also will prevent this wonderful national treasure from being injured?
So you're saying the stunt directors,
The
coordinators,
coordinators,
they'll be influencing how the scene is actually going to run.
Oh yeah, it's a completely collaborative process.
Because in my mind, it was a director, the powers that be would come to the company and say, "Look, we want X, Y, and Z," and I'm guessing not many people want to turn down a contract and say we can't do this, and they'll just say yes to anything, and it's very, very unsafe. But you're saying is no, we'll come in there and we'll make it work, and we'll actually have people work with your team.
So I mean, like Jake was saying, the screenwriter writes the script. That story then gets signed off on by the producers. The producers find their director, or maybe however it happens. You end up with the director who's in charge of creating the product of that script, and then our job is to create something that suits the story.
Wow, that's Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize there was much creativity like from that side of the
Oh yeah, and
industry.
I think Jake will agree. It's the most fun when it's collaborative.
The best things usually are. Like, Jake, you're sounding incredibly like level-headed and reasonable. And I think a lot of times people I knew of a gentleman, Lucky Chance. Does that name ring a bell for you guys?
I know Lucky, yeah.
But unfortunately,
Well, I knew Lucky,
he
yeah.
died years ago. But he seemed like sort of the prototypical stuntman. I'm throwing myself off cliffs all the time. I'm climbing without ropes. I'm doing stuff that seemingly to the public is a little bit reckless, or it's out there. It's the typical stuntman thing. But then we take to you two gentlemen, it's sort of like, no, we just turn up, we do things reasonably, we talk to them in a professional manner, and we go through a process of discussion and, reasonable dialogue, and we come up with a nice product in the end.
Yeah.
Sort of defies expectations, guys.
Like I was saying, it's just I'm completely, thrown my realities, my
expectations for it, yeah.
preconceived ideas of what you were like.
So Jake, where do you see the rest of the sort of the stunt direction going? Do you want to coordinate? Is there more artistic based things that being now in that industry kind of going, maybe I want to lean a little bit more on the creative side, or you still haven't decided yet?
I think I want to be in this industry for a long time, and obviously the end goal is to be a stunt coordinator. But in saying that, I'm in no rush to sort of do it. I think I'm looking at it as an apprenticeship and treating it as an apprenticeship. So, there's not just performing, not just performing to be a good stunt coordinator. It's, you've got to understand the performing aspect. You've got to understand the rigging aspect. You've got to understand what goes into your sort of major stunts with building and fabrication and that sort of thing. And then you've also got to understand the safety side of it, and not just the safety of performers, the safety of the crew and everyone that's on set. So it's for me, it's going to be a slow burn, and it's just spending as much time as I can on productions and with different stunt coordinators and trying to pick what each one does really well, and then kind of logging that and then be like, okay, well, let's meet another stunt coordinator and see what they do and see what they do really well, and just trying to build a good little data sheet of all these different stunt coordinators that I look up to and picking the best aspects of what they do, and then trying to mold myself into having all the best aspects of that down the line.
You must find it hard watching movies and not deconstructing all the scenes that stunts are involved in. Like,
it's impossible.
Yeah, so once you look behind the curtain, that you can't not see it. So is there something that comes to mind that you sort of left you baffled for days, weeks, just like, how did they do that?
I think it's harder. It's getting harder and harder now because you're not really sure. CGI is getting so good. Visual effects is getting so good. We've all seen the VFX posts on Instagram where you see the finished product and then you see the green screen in the studio that they've shot it on. So yeah, you do. I do try and look at that when I am watching a movie, but at the same time, I still just like to enjoy and watch a movie. For me, it's still, I see like little continuity things as kind of what I pick up first before, trying to analyze a stunt.
Okay.
So that's what it's got to be a hell of a good movie for me to get lost in it. Because if I'm not picking apart the stunts, I'm picking apart the acting,
Sure.
or I'm picking apart the photography, or picking apart the directing. Do
you enjoy doing that?
I do. I really do. I think that's what we were touching on before when you were talking about the way that I tell stories and the detail. Like I really do. Like when I was watching Mank the other night, to my knowledge, there's 2 stunt sequences in that whole film, and beautifully done because they'd fly completely under the radar and you wouldn't even think about there being a stunt sequence in there. But with my knowledge of the industry, I know that would have been a stunt performer doing that. That the coordinator would have been involved. But I mean, watching his performance and watching the detail in those things, and thinking about the fact that, you know, someone like Gary Oldman has managed to craft this seamless performance when, you know, with my knowledge of filming, that was 20 different setups. You know, there was moments where it couldn't have been shot at the same time because the camera would have been in shot. And, you know, there's all those things, and yet he managed to create this perfect, seamless, you know, performance. And the editor managed to perfectly put it together, and the director managed to have the through line to get the whole coverage that he needed. And yeah, no, I geek out on it still.
Is there any animosity or slight grumblings between like the CGI, the special effects side and stunts, considering it, you could take it a little bit of, they're taking away a bit of our stuff. That
Well, I was going to ask whether it's potentially going to make your job obsolete one day.
What do you reckon, Jake?
No, 'cause I think we all kind of work together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've got three departments there that are really kind of working together to achieve a look. And what Aidan touched on was exactly right. When you do watch some films, you do have a newfound respect for how long that shot actually took to film, because, you know, the different angles, the way they've shot it. And then when you filter in, you know, your CGI and your special effects and that sort of thing. But no, I don't think, at least I hope, we're not going to be made redundant. And I think that's quite a ways down the track. I think you're going to have that human element in stunts.
Like I also think that the audience responds differently. Like you're always going to know the difference between someone actually doing something and something that's been, you know, generated. Like,
so the uncanny valley sort of aspect.
Even if it got perfect, then people would just want to know whether it was a person or whether it was a, you know, CGI. And I think the best versions of it are the ones where they do the composite. So like what comes to mind for me is the shot in Mad Max where one of the war boys gets blown off the side of the war rig. And it was basically a composite of three different setups where you had the live performer just doing a little sort of reaction off the side of the war rig. Then you had the live performer doing a bigger thing off the side of the war rig. Then you had a green screen element of they got him spinning through the air. Then you got the sort of special effects element where they took a dummy that was a perfect copy of him, launched it off the side of the... And when you see that particular bit of footage, which I'll try and get so you can put it up on here,
Yeah, we will.
there's a wonderful shot that was just behind the scenes where someone's just filming it and you just got the war rig driving towards it. And then all of a sudden, big explosion and this human body comes flailing out of the war rig, hits the ground and gets run over. And that from the distance is even very off-putting to watch. And then when you see it as the composite of the three sort of main elements together, that's what makes it a sort of visual extravaganza where you can't see where one became the other necessarily. You know, like, you know that the beginning was a real person. The end can't be a real person because we've killed him. So at what point did that transition happen?
Wow.
Yeah, that's fabulous. The is there what movie would you go to though, Jake? You're at home, you've just done a hard day of stunts, you feel exhausted, but at the same time you want to be entertained. Like, I'm going to throw my favorite comfort movie on just to sit back and have a glass of port with. Like, what would you go to?
Port.
I don't know, it's my favorite drink, so I just threw that in.
Love a
It
bit of
depends what mood I'm in, but I mean, I kind of like watching what did I watch last night? Last night I watched the original Iron Man from 08.
Okay.
Yeah, just because now obviously I've seen that so many times, but now I sit down. I think it's the first scene when he returns home and he's trying to rebuild his Iron Man suit, and he starts kind of flying around his garage, and that's when I'm looking at that going, well, I know how that's done now. Let me see if I can see where his pick points are in his harness and see how they're, because I know, like, I've seen the behind the scenes, I know how they're doing it, but now it's my turn to sit down and go, okay, well, let's see if I can. And you pick up little tenting in in costume and that sort of stuff, and it's kind of cool to see that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm pretty broad as far as movies and TV shows. Like, I could be watching X-Files 1 minute and Peaky Blinders the next minute. It's just, yeah, whatever I'm feeling at the time.
How is Peaky? I've heard it's very good to watch.
Really
It's
good.
Yeah,
Really good.
Peaky Blinders is great. The first season, it takes a little bit to get into.
Okay.
I think I took like 2 attempts to watch the first season, but then once you're in, you're in.
Has there been any like going back to like a scene that you've seen or like something overseas? I'm thinking of like Hong Kong fight scenes and sort of the portrayal of what Jackie Chan supposedly talks about and how they just sort of do these one shots or at least one camera shot. Here's this long 30-second sequence of fights, and that still seems amazing. Is there anything that particular comes to mind for you that you still like? Ooh, I mean, I would love to learn it, but that also at the same time, I'm glad I'm not there. Possibly that seems a bit full on.
Probably in the last John Wick, where they've got the fight scene in like the antique armory, weapon antique store, and they're just pegging knives at each other. Like, and just
surely they're
going.
CG knives though to a point. Like going back to
man,
that.
I don't even know. But that was I think it was the 8711 guys that did that, right? Ada?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Are they a group?
Yeah, I mean, that seems insane. Like,
yeah, so they're the guys behind all the John Wick franchise. So basically, you've got so the 8711 guys came out of The Matrix. You know, they were doubling Keanu. They were heavily involved in that. And then in the early 2000s, they set up shop in LA. I can't remember where in California it was, but basically they sort of revolutionized in a way the way that action was being shot. And now when you look at all the action films that have been coming out, you know, stuff like Atomic Blonde and, you know, to a point, Extraction. And
when you say they revolutionized it, in what aspect?
it was the first time that you know, Hal Needman back in the day, he's the only stunt performer ever to receive an Oscar. Again, you know, when you mentioned Oscars before, I didn't even know who'd won because I don't pay attention because they don't recognize my industry. Hal Needham actually won a Oscar, and he's the only stunt performer to ever win it. And he won it for lifetime achievement. Okay, because we don't have an award.
Sure.
He was the first really. There was a few of them. Yeah, I'm not bitter at all. There's a few of them that sort of started stepping into directing, and they sort of paved the way. So you got Hal Needham, Vic Armstrong. There's a couple of them that had the acumen to not just be a second unit director, because there's a lot of stunties that sort of step into that. So you're in charge of a lot of the action that gets shot, but to actually be able to helm an entire film. So have the acumen to, you know, handle the drama and the comedy and all the stuff, as well as carry over the stunts. And I mean, the 8711 guys came through and did that. And then you've got like a gentleman I'm working with at the moment that I really look up to is Sam Hargrave. And he's sort of the newest kid on the block for doing that, of being able to direct the entire movie and, you know, coming from the stunt aspect. So yeah, they did John Wick, they did Atomic Blonde, they did...
it comes to mind like The Raid and some of those, the other Thai film...
Ong
Bak, yes. Yeah. They, from my memory, they seem to maybe have had a bit of a crew that were orientated on the fight scenes being... obviously, The Raid is a focal point. It's what it is. It's an hour and a half just fighting.
Yeah. Onslaught.
Yeah. Got to see it, Pete. It's great.
Clearly.
Well, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Is there anything you want to leave us with, or thoughts or wisdoms or encouragements to get other young budding sort of stuntmen into the fold? Or women? Like, I mean, that's the thing. I go on to that. Like, do you find also that, like, is it a very inclusive?
That's actually something I want to jump in on, because we were going to have Jake's partner Mel on as well, and I'm a firm proponent of the fact that there's stunties. Yeah. That a female and a male stuntie only exists in the mind of costume and a coordinator when they're trying to cast the particular production. As far as we're concerned, there's stunties. Sure. You know, I'm working with Hayley at the moment on Interceptor, and where she's doubling Elsa, how am I saying it, Pataki? I'll probably fucked that up. But she, Hayley's out there taking the biggest wrecks, like there's kind of this weird thing in the world of wanting to say, stunt woman, stunt man. There's just stunties.
Stunties, yeah.
A stunty doesn't matter whether they're male or female, they'll do the same thing.
And there has been an upswing of female roles that have included more action and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, being that you have to look like the character involved, the byproduct is there is more men, unfortunately, in film doing things that might be involved to do a stunt.
I think the revolution started.
Yeah, that's great, as it should be.
But yeah, any advice, Jake?
Not too much advice. I mean, the criteria is, it's there. It's on the website. You've kind of got to seek it out, and if you want to do it, you're going to do it. But as far as girls in the industry, I mean, they do it tough. They do it really tough. Especially like I know Mel when she was in Fiji shooting, she was in like a dress, and she's running up and down this dirt road all day. And before the scene, the coordinator's like, Mel, where's your pad bag? You make sure you get your pad bag. So she's gone back to set, got a pad bag, and come back with the pads on. And it's like, he's like, oh, well, you didn't need your pad bag because now I think of it, you can't pad up because you're in a dress.
Yeah, of course, you've got to be the female body.
You can't put your elbow pads up. Yeah, you've just got to use. And a lot of the female costume is just shorts and dresses and that sort of stuff. Like the costume that they're in a lot of times doesn't lend them the luxury of putting that many pads on. So a lot of the recs that those guys have to take, they're gnarly because a lot of the times they don't have the luxury of putting as many pads on. So
yeah, there's always continuing the gender divide there of responsibilities and tasks that they have to shoulder. It's
I mean, you're standing right there doing basically the same rec, and you're getting to put pads on and wear jeans.
Yeah,
it's hectic.
Yeah, that's insane.
There was actually I was watching a movie called Finding Ohana the other day, which is a really wonderful sort of almost like a reimagined version of the Goonies. It's really, really well done. Like
is there a chunk and
no
stand-in?
But it's about the people going into the cave to find the old treasure and that whole bit, and it's really I do suggest watching it. But there was a moment where I'm sitting there watching it with my daughter and my girlfriend, and I went, oh, there's going to be a wreck coming up. She went, what do you mean? And I went, well, it's middle of summer, and that guy just put on a sweater for no apparent reason. I went, so they're covering it up, they're getting ready for it. And I went, she's wearing like booty shorts and a singlet, so he'll take a big wreck and she'll basically come out of it fine. I went, that's my prediction. 2 minutes later, big wreck, and she followed him straight through it. And I just went, oh God, that poor woman that showed up, saw her costume and just went, are you serious? Like, he's going to wear that and you're giving me this? So, thanks, guys. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and to their credit, a lot of the time it's not like, are you serious? It's just kind of like a bit of a sigh and it's like, okay.
Yeah, they know the score. Like, unfortunately, they've already had it for the last 20 years of their lives, so they've kind of like. I
will be honest as well. Like, I've in the last couple of years, as I've started doubling, more of the leads, as a guy, there's a quite funny thing where you go from playing the bad guy, where it's here's your leather jacket and your jeans and your big boots and all that stuff, to you start doubling the lead, and then it's like, okay, so you're wearing this skin tight shirt and you're wearing these nudie jeans, and that's going to be your costume for taking that wreck. And it's like, this is what the girls go through every time.
See, what you're saying is what Zac Efron does get paid is worth it because of all the torturous material they have to wear and arduous nature it is to always be pretty. And
well, I don't think I was saying that.
Sure.
Yeah, like it happened to me a couple of days ago on the film that I'm working on now, where we're talking about padding up, and I'm standing there wearing a t-shirt, that, like I say, it's pretty much skin tight, and I'm looking at the other guy who's with me, and he's wearing a t-shirt that's pretty much skin tight as well, and it's like, well, I guess we're putting on knee pads. That's about it, you know. And it's fine. That's the job.
Well, that's where the CGI, you guys can team up. It's like, we'll throw some more pads on. You guys just do a bit more roto work, and we'll be all good. We're employing each other to do the work. Like, I was watching some more Gene Kelly. I was telling Aiden the other night, and again, the female dancers, performers, massive high heels, just doing incredibly athletic work. And the men,
Do you know the quote?
No, go.
When they were talking about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers,
Mm-hmm.
they said everyone talks about how Fred Astaire is the best dancer in the world. Ginger Rogers did everything Fred did, but backwards and in heels.
Yeah, touche. Well, Jake, you've given us an inspiring story of like how to get into it. I do love the beginnings of where you went through and sort of how found that journey as well, and not just having this. It does get a little bit boring sometimes when you hear in popular discourse or actors and other performers, they've just been doing this one thing this whole time. And like, that's great if you have that one single focus, that's the thing that drives you. But when you also come to it with a different direction, it gives you something totally different as well. That's totally valid. And I think that's what we're trying to explore here. So Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure, sir. Don't want to take any more of your evening.
No, thanks very much, man. I've had a great time, and if you do want to get into stunts, the information's on the MIA website, the MEAA, I think it's MEAA.com.au. Just put it into Google, it'll come up. I know Stunt Gym, which is in Sydney, in North Sydney. Tony Lynch is a stunt coordinator that operates that. That's a really great place to go and start your training and to gather a bit more information about it.
100%.
And my one really big bit of advice would be go out and buy yourself a skateboard, because that's going to teach you really quickly that falling down on concrete isn't that bad.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the words of wisdom that's going to end that for sure.
Well, and just before Jake does go, just a really big thank you to Jake, because he's currently driving he's just finished a film that he was working on in South Australia, and he's currently driving his way back to Sydney, and he's in a motel in the middle of nowhere, and he took the time to find 4G and jump on for this chat. So thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it.
Good on you, Jake.
No problem.
Thank you,
Anytime,
Jake.
guys.
Have a good one, matey.
Bye.
See ya.
Lovely chat.
Yeah, wasn't that wonderful chat?
Yeah.
Very nice, like incredibly reasoned individual as well. Like every time it's always your expectations are defied, and you're sort of like, oh, okay. I was trying to draw out a bit more excitement from it, but really it's like, no, I like to go in really logical and think about the process, and we've all talked about it, and we've come to an agreement, and we just go do our job.
And that's really listening, just going, this is completely different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it now. Pete, you're fading away. We don't want to keep you anymore, and I'm fading off thinking of things to say anyway. So it's been a marvellous time, gentlemen, as always.
Thanks, boys.
It's been another episode. Of course, you can follow us on youtube.com/Journeyman Collective and Patreon if you feel so like you'd like to donate to us. Patreon.com/The Journeyman Collective. Otherwise, just watching it and appreciating it or not appreciating it is well worth it. And if you want to make a comment if you wish. I don't think I'll be reading any of them. I don't think I have the heart or the fortitude of mind to go through comments. So
I'll read them. I'm used to being critiqued. I can do it.
Perfect. I'm okay being critiqued. I think I'd think about having to think about it, and I just don't want to think about it. So.
There's nothing that my ex-partners haven't said to me, so I'm good. I can take it all.
Thank you, folks. Have a good one. Stay safe and love each other. And otherwise, we'll call it there.
Peace out.